Dr. Alphonzo Monzo.
All right, welcome. Thanks for coming. Some quick announcements, real quick. A lot of people were interested in the IV nutrition for Jessica to come down tomorrow. She still needs a couple more people to sign up. So if you want to do that, we have one of those, I forget, what are those stupid things called? Yeah, the Q codes for your phone. That will take you to her website to register. So she just needs enough people to make it worth the trip because it's about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours for her to drive.
Is that a Myers cocktail?
Yeah, something like that. I think it's the $99 is a special for the IV, and she's going to try to not make them too long, so you're not sitting there for like 2 hours getting an IV. Did she say how long it was going to take?
About a half hour.
About a half hour.
Can you tell us what you're talking about? We've not heard.
It's nutritional IVs.
Okay.
So the nurse will be here tomorrow if we get enough people signed up who wants to get a nutritional IV. Now on the Aleph Tav Body application. Well, there's a lot we can talk about. Obviously the book's done, and we're passing some books around so you guys can kind of get a look at it. You don't necessarily need the book for this presentation right now, but everything we're going to cover in the presentation is in the book, so you can get a little view of it. If you have a book, then you might be able to take some notes and stuff like that if you want. From what we know, you're supposed to be able to write on those pages easily without any problem. So we're seeing how that works. So we're trying not to cover too much of what I've covered in the past about Aleph Tav Body. So I'm not really going to get into a lot of the introduction, just a little bit. We're going to go mostly right to applications, and these are more of the emergency type applications. But we're going to do a little bit of a background just real quick. There's that guy. Fair use. I don't like this, but I can't tell. I think. So here's a quick definition. What is the Aleph Tav Body system? Well, Aleph Tav Body system is a Hebrew electromagnetic telecommunication system of the human body. The system is made up of all the basic building blocks of creation, the Hebrew letters, which controls all the information for proper function, shape, form, and animation of the human body. So it is not Kabbalah, it's not mysticism, it's not New Age, it's not a cult. Satan didn't create anything, but he sure does like to copy. So some basic principles of biophysics, which is another way of saying bioenergetics, or how the body works according to laws of physics and electromagnetism, because everything in the universe is electromagnetism. So everything in the body is ultimately controlled by an energy system of control points and pathways. All right, the control points are like the master telecommunication centers, and they broadcast all types of information throughout the body through pathways. Okay, and that information and that energy is the life source energy that keeps the human flesh alive, and the information that everything in the body needs to function correctly. And that's all coming through the Hebrew letters, which are technically always connected to Yah, which is, how many people were at Virtual House Church today? A lot of you, so it really, it's always amazing how Yah works these things. In Deuteronomy, they're talking about, remember to keep my commands, remember to keep my commands, remember to keep my commands. Well, that's because the Hebrew letters are written on your body. So if you violate his words, you're automatically violating your body. And the blessing and the curse is built into the body. So if you're keeping a law, you would keep away all disease and sickness because the body would be working perfectly. So the body works on the laws of physics and mathematics, but it also works on the laws of spiritual warfare. The body is a temple. It's based on all of I'm going to be careful not to do that. Yah's laws, which I call the universal Torah, which is everything he spoke and all the stuff that maybe he didn't speak that we are still finding out. Yep, I already said that. Yep, I said that. I'm always ahead of myself. I should just read off the slides, but I think it's boring. All right, so to really In a nutshell, that's a good way to say it. In a nutshell, this is how it works. You need proper circulation and proper resonation of specific energy points and pathways in the body. If they're circulating and resonating, you are going to have proper health. And it gets complicated, but thinking of these pathways as an electrical circuit is good, but it's very limited, because the type of energy we're talking about is not limited to just electricity. Okay, so another way to really think of it is like a flow of water flowing through the body. It really is plasma energy. And plasma energy is basically light that travels through different forms. So it can travel through gas, it can travel through liquid, it can travel through solids. The sun is a type of plasma energy, fire is plasma, electricity or lightning is a type of plasma. You've seen plasma balls or tubes where you place your fingers on them and you have electric. That's a type of plasma. So it still works based on electromagnetic principles, but it's not as limited as thinking of electricity. So what happens? Someone steps on the hose and you get two problems. It gets congestion. So it's not like the energy is not circulating. There's no such thing as the energy not circulating. If the energy stops circulating, you're dead. And the spirit returns back to the one who gave it, and you return back to the dust. But when the energy gets congested, it's like less energy or water trickling through. So some areas of the body are going to have a lack of information and energy, which is then determine how that part of the body can function correctly. Because if it doesn't have the software, it's not going to be able to perform its function. And in other parts of the body, you're going to have a buildup of too much energy. So one would be a weakened state, one would be an inflamed state. This is how it works. So oftentimes, you will see that where you have a problem or issue is not where the cause is. The cause can often be somewhere else. This is why the medical community really has no clue what they're doing most of the time. Because if your brain's not working right, and let's say it's epilepsy and you're having seizures, they're going to sit there and go, well, let's replace the bulb. Thinking of it as electrical system. They replace the bulb, still doesn't work. All right, let's cut off your light switch. Put in a new light switch, still doesn't work. Well, the problem is they don't realize there's a pathway that goes through the wall from the light switch to the light. And maybe somewhere along that circuit, the cord is broke. And you can't see these pathways with the naked eye, so they don't believe they exist, of course. And so when you have a problem with them, they have no way of figuring it out or measuring it. So they just like cutting and dicing and creating more problems. And that's why they can't figure out why they're causing more problems and what they're doing to you. One more. So this is how the structure of the body is really organized. So if you get a biology book, anatomy, physiology, sometimes even pathology books, you're going to find something called the levels of structural organization. Usually it's in biology. And they start with number 2, chemistry. And they say all chemicals come together to form cells, and cells come together to form tissues, and tissues come together to form organs, and all the organs work together to form the organ system, and then all the organ systems working together form you. Okay? Sounds great, except what controls the chemistry of the body? Well, it's the informational level of the body, which is energetic. So again, it's the unseen that creates the seen, which is exactly what the scripture tells us over and over. It's the unseen that creates the seen. And what controls the informational level of the body is mainly the Aleph Tav Body system. It's the Hebrew letters. There are a bunch of other electromagnetic systems, like in Chinese medicine, and there's a bunch of other reflexology points. But those aren't the master control centers. Like in acupuncture, you have thousands of points. Whereas in Aleph Tav Body, you have 22 letters. There's more than 22 points, because there's 5 final forms, and that gets into a whole other story. It's all in the book, but ultimately the Hebrew letters control all those other systems. All right. Yes. In-phase coherence, yes, blah, 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 blah. I kind of said all that. So the Creator provides a breath of light and life, which is force, movement, information, spirit, and that breath of light starts turning into the other energetic pathways as it begins to manifest and become more physical. And that's what allows, I should say this real quick. So that's what allows us to live in a physical temple. The connection in my mind is very clear. The connection between the spiritual realm and the physical realm is the electromagnetic spectrum. Which is why if you see anyone who does a lot of work with deliverance, and they really know what they're doing, you'll find a lot of times they find that the demons and spirits like to travel across the electric grid system and the Earth's electromagnetic system. Because the electromagnetic system is the glue that connects the physical realm, which is dust, to the spiritual realm. Okay, this is why there's so much lying about energy. Why do you think Satan's so involved in this field? Because he knows that he's the prince and power of the air, and most of our communication now is through the air. He knows very well how these principles work. He knows how the body was created, a lot better than us most of the time. So he knows how to go after these things. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow with the weaponized and the nanotech, and we're going to get into the injection. I can say, I don't call it a vaccine. The injection. And we're going to talk about how they are specifically targeting the Aleph Tav points now. It's the first time I've ever seen this, but they are actually going after the Aleph Tav points on the body now. Because they know the Aleph Tav points, the Hebrew letters, control your DNA. You don't really have DNA, you have chromosomes. Do you know you have exactly 22 autosomes? Everyone has 22. The 23rd pair is the sex chromosome. So that's different between men and women. And I think it's kind of misleading how they say it, because they say, well, 46. Well, it's actually 22 pairs. Chromosome 1 on the left and on the right are still chromosome 1. So when they say it as 46, you start losing the nuances that you actually have 22. And the 23rd one, when you divide it out, kind of becomes like the final forms, is only sex. Just like you have 22 letters in Hebrew. Because the 22 chromosomes are controlled by the Hebrew letters. And then each one of those chromosomes, you have all kinds of genes. Most of them are just man-made names, and that gets into a whole other subject. But big thing to remember is matter doesn't matter to energy. Okay? You can cut someone's leg off, and all the energy that travels into the leg will still be circulating through the leg, hopefully not uncongested. It could be a little bit because of the scar tissue. But if you were to fill the energy pulses to where the leg should be, even though it's not there, you can still fill it. If you do Carillion photography, where they're able to see the energy, the photons, which is light coming off of the body, you can still see the shape of the leg, even though the leg is missing. So the energy is still there, even though the physical matter is not. And that's what what they call phantom pain. Phantom pain, all pain means energy is not circulating well in the body. It doesn't matter what it is. If there's pain, it means energy is not circulating. And that's a warning sign trying to tell you that there's a problem in your body. So phantom pain is there is still a signal going to your body, to your brain, saying there's a problem there. Now we're going to get into good stuff. So when you get to the letters, they're really interesting. I can't get into all the history and everything that's in the book, but in a nutshell, I guess I'm not doing too bad. A long time ago, this was ancient knowledge, and they had ancient laying on of hands, and throughout time, probably because of our disobedience, we probably threw away the information, and a lot of the information got lost. It got brought from the lost tribes into Japan, And in Japan is where it got rediscovered by someone called Yaro Moraya. Interesting name, Yaro Moraya. On a mountain, he rediscovered, and he was recalling this ancient therapy that was taught mainly verbally by tribesmen. And it comes to be that these tribesmen were Hebrews. A lot of people don't realize it, but about 70% of Japan are actually probably Hebrew. In fact, they have like over 2,000 words that are pronounced and mean the exact same thing as a Hebrew word. So they actually mean from the tribe of Isaac, I believe, is one of the names in Hebrew when you take away the J's and you translate it right. So that tribe came in, and then they mixed with other people that were there, and that created the Japanese. That's why they have words like samurai, which is a Hebrew word for protector of the king. So this was brought through Japan, and then Japan started getting it throughout the rest of the world, and that's when it became more new-aged and watered down and all kinds of nonsense. And the last 11 years of my life has been going back through and retesting everything to find out what was true and what was not, and what lined up to scripture and what didn't. So a lot of measuring the points and finding out all their vibrational frequencies, which their operating frequency just happens to line up with the numbers related to the Hebrew letters. And then what you find out is the symbolic meaning of each point has the same meanings as the Hebrew letter. So the Aleph. The Aleph is on the inside of your knee, and it has to do with movement. Anything to do with movement in the body is an Aleph problem. So it's very complicatedly simple. That's the way it is. Very simple enough so anyone can understand this, but if you want to dig deep, it's just one layer deeper. Obviously, I don't even know everything, and it's going to take everyone working together to really pull out all this stuff, because, I mean, how do you exhaust something of Yah? So that's the ones, or the Aleph, the prime mover. And when you think about that, the concept of the Aleph is it's the first letter. It's the silent letter. We get a lot of A words from the Aleph, and when you turn the Aleph, you get the A. That's where the A came from. So it comes something like the artist or the architect. These are people who design. They think of something in their head first, and then they express it. And the expression is the bet, which is the physical form. But the Aleph is the unspoken idea, the plan, the purpose, the artist, the architect, who is designing everything. So he is the creator of the first movement. And what was happening in the creation? He was hovering over the waters. Movement. Now, also this, symbolically. What are you going to do if you want to move? What's the first thing you have to do? Do we walk around like this? First thing you have to do is bend your knee. Who do you bend your knees to? Who is represented by the? Can't make it up. Coincidence, I'm sure. You know, if I just some crazy new age guy who just made all this stuff up and this happens to all work out perfectly. The Mem. This one's under a lot of attack right now. The Mem is a picture, kind of like I have it up there. These are more of the Ericology pictographs, or paleo, you could say. He took a little bit of a liberty, but for the most part, that looks a lot like some of the ancient pictograph and some of the paleo. The Hebrew letters have changed over time. Obviously, originally the Hebrew letters were pictographs. And that's kind of like a picture of water. And the idea of Mem is chaos, water, birthing, blessing, and curse. So obviously you can see that the Mem has a lot of ideas to do with fertility and birthing. Through birth there is chaos, and then a blessing comes out. And what happens during birthing? The baby's born through water. So there's all these concepts of Mem words that start with M, Marnar, mother, these words that have to do with being like a mother, birthing, family. So it's not a surprise that the Mem on the body is the number one point for controlling endocrine system, which is your hormones, and fertility issues. pregnancy, anything to do with any of that stuff. Also, all the DID and the SRA, because the mem has a lot to do with personality and bringing things together. Blood mikvah is the name of this point. So it's the idea of combining and bringing together. So this is one of the top applications for things with multiple personality, SRA, DID, anything to do with the immune system. So obviously the mem is under a lot of attack right now. How many people know of, not Russ Dizdar, who's the other guy? Out in LA Mizzouli. He does presentations on some of the abductions, where people are abducted, and then there's certain parts of the body that have been surgically removed, which no one can understand because it's beyond our type of surgery. And the main spot is these 2 points cut out, almost always. And that's because I think that the fallen ones are trying to reproduce what they used to do, and they want access to what controls reproduction. The lamed, we're going to do just a couple more, and then we're going to get into the hands-on, which I need to get rid of. When are we done? 4? Yeah. All right, lamed is on the neck. The lamed looks like a shepherd's staff. So this is what a shepherd would use to shepherd. And it can mean learning, or guiding, or shepherding. That's the concepts of a lamed. It's where they get their idea of, in Hebrew, to learn is to lamed. And the interesting thing is, it's on the neck. And what does the shepherd do? Direct and guide. So he tries to help guide the sheep, and he shows them his will and how to walk, and he shepherds them and guides them and protects them and teaches them. So no surprising, the lamed has to do with our will. My mind is going blank. It's called will of authority. Yeah, that's the name of that point. So yes, what happens if that point gets congested? Well, you have lack of blood flow to the brain and lack of energy flow to the brain, so you're going to become more stubborn and you're going to have hard problems thinking, and the energy is going to build up and put all the pressure below. So the neck's going to become extremely stiff, and you're going to get a stiff upper neck and back, and you become a stiff-necked people. So when he called them stiff-necked people, is because they literally were developing stiff necks because they were all about their will instead of his will. It also helps digestion, pain in the butt. Yeah, it is a pain in the butt. The opposite lamed will affect opposite sciatic, which is pain in the butt. And if you're a pain in the butt, he gives you a pain in the butt. That's how it works. So if you're being willful and stubborn and you're not listening, he will get you. The tet in Hebrew looks like a basket in the pictographic form. It's the idea of what you're holding on to, or what's in your basket. Some people say it looks sometimes like a snake in a basket, or it looks like a seal. There's better Hebrew words or Hebrew letters that really mean a seal, if you really think about it. But this could be one that's pretty close. But the idea of basket. And this point has a lot to do with what you're holding on to and not letting go. Typically, this is a point you see almost always has a problem with women more than men. Men in 1 point up, more in the tens, which is the yod, which has more to do with the working hand and where the burdens are. But the tet more has to do with what you're carrying in your basket. And that just has to come back to the concept of the men and women and how women are designed to be the vessel. And the men fill the women and the women carry. So women have a harder time letting go because their design is to be a vessel to hold. So women technically have typically more problems with the tet, but almost everybody has a problem with the tet because almost everyone has problems letting go. And if you're not letting go, then you get problems that are related to not letting go, right? Bowel movements. It could be a one problem because it requires movement to go, or it might be because you're holding on to something. And if you're holding on to something, you can't go. Sinuses. Sinuses get all congested in. Well, maybe you're holding on to something. So symbolically, the body works just like everything else. Asthma. Asthma is usually not letting go and fear. What happens when an asthma attack happens? You go, and you hold on. But you don't want to do that because there's is it Hering's law? No. There's a law, I forget now, it's been too many years since medical school. It might be Hering's law. Basically, it says that you want, if there's equal pressure inside the lungs and outside the lungs, no air can come in and out. The pressure has to be greater on the outside than the inside for the air to come in. So the best way to get more air in your lungs is to completely let go. You have to give up your breath to receive the next from him. But during the asthma attack, it gets scary, so what everyone does is they go, and they hold on, and they equalize the pressure, and now you're not getting anything in or out. So it's the opposite of what we want to do. We want to just completely let go, in faith, rely on him, so we can receive that next breath. And this stuff can get really deep. We can talk all day on one phone. All week. All right, the last one, just because this is really interesting, when we get to pathways, I should say this. When it comes to Aleph Tav Body, to understand one thing you have to know A to understand B, but you need B to understand A, and then there's C, and you really need C to understand A and B, but you can't understand C until you have A and B. So it's one of these subjects where you just have to kind of take the information in and just be like, I don't understand it yet, but I'm just putting it somewhere. So the best way to do that is to create files in your brain to put things. So there's 3 things in Aleph Tav Body. You got points, command control points. That's the Hebrew letters. The second category is you got pathways. That's how the information travels. And the third thing is you have cycles. In electrical engineering or in telecommunication, we would call these modulators. But cycles are like categories of frequency. And anything that works within the frequency of that cycle gets put into that cycle. So everything in the body is divided into one of 7 cycles. Of course, there's 7 cycles in the body. 7th being Yeshua, the light that holds us together. And then 6th cycle is the breath of life. And then the 5 physical cycles are physical, meaning different layers of the body manifested. So 3rd cycle is the manifestation of blood. Okay, and Moss spoke earlier today talking about things. So what is 3rd cycle? It's related to the liver and the gallbladder. Anger, frustration, the head, the eyes, the brain, the heart, the ears. It has opposite colors. Typically 3rd cycle is green, but the opposite color is red. That gets into a deep thing. But if you think about blood in the inside of the body kind of looks greenish, and when you start bleeding, and it just speaking too fast, exposed to oxygen, it turns red. So these are opposite in colors. Now here's the interesting thing, if you can see that picture, all of the cycles have 2 pathways. They pair, and she was speaking about this again this morning if you saw her lecture on emotions and how they affect the body. So on your right side is the head and vision messenger pathway. And on the left side, no. Left side is head and vision messenger pathway. And on your right side is the blood messenger pathway. Okay? And these pathways work together. Where one ends, the other continues. And what's interesting is you will notice these pathways are in the right big toe, the right big thumb, and the right earlobe. Leviticus 14:14. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. Any coincidence that you have a pathway that controls blood that happens to go through those three areas. So see, there's all these hidden things, and we go, why is he telling them to take blood and put it on the earlobe, the big thumb, and the... Yeah, it's New Age. The pagans do that. Well, they copied off of someone. So, we're going to get into the emergency procedures. And this next thing is a video. So, just to warn you, this is in, I might fast forward some of it. This is an actual surgery of a surgeon removing a tumor from someone's forehead. So, if you don't like blood, you might want to turn away. I'm probably going to try to fast forward this and maybe control the volume.
You apply this method by simply placing your right hand down and the left hand at a 90-degree angle over the right.
So they're going to apply the stop bleeding procedure during the surgery, and you can see what it's like. And if anyone's in the medical field, you're going to know more that typically when you do surgery, this is the forehead. So what you're seeing is the nose is, you can't see my highlighter, but he's right above the nose. So they have the two eyes covered, and you can kind of see part of the nose. So normally, when you're doing a surgery on a forehead, it's going to be bleeding like crazy. And there's a lot of interference here because they're using synthetic clothing, and there's metal, and there's EMFs, and all that stuff is going to affect the procedure to some degree. But let me see. Why is it not showing me how long it is? This is weird. So this demonstration mode, I can't see it. And the surgeon's really a pain in the butt too, because he keeps wanting to stick his finger in there. You'll see in a minute. So see, you can kind of start to see it's working now.
Normally you'd have
Because look at that hole.
bleeding still continuing, but as you can see, the bleeding is very minimal and the blood has started to coagulate.
It has nothing to do with pressure.
It's coagulating and not even oozing out of the wound at this time.
Now what happened is she moved her hand up there because she was trying to get the doctor to get out of here.
Don't bother yet. You see how it's coagulated, Dr. Wells?
If you keep watching, you're going to start seeing it close up. Now the doctor won't let it close completely without stitching it, which is a pain in the butt, but no.
And suture without boving. So we've apply the key method just about another couple of minutes over this area. There's no bleeding at the incision site.
This is the display mode, so it's different.
Okay, we're done.
Alright, you're going to start seeing it close up here in a little bit. And then we're going to move on. So yes, if you were able to hold it long enough, the body could completely seal off without any stitches and without scar tissue. It will take a while, but so we're going to get to that in a minute on how they do the stop bleeding, but that's a good live demonstration to show how powerful it is. And of course I have all kinds of testimonies we could get into. So how this works, what you're seeing on the screen there is the breath of life and breath of light primary pathway, which starts in the umbilical. And the energy begins in the left hand, where it circulates back in, and then it goes to the right foot, and then it comes back, and then it goes in the right hand, and then it comes back, and it goes into the left foot, it comes back. So your left hand is negative, your right hand's positive, your left foot is positive, your right foot is negative. And because of this polarity, you can then use your hands as polarity on the body on these points. And in electrical circuits, and even in magnetism, polarity will affect the flow of energy. So energy in electrical circuits actually moves from negative to positive. So heart attack. What we do for a heart attack is your left hand grabs the left little finger, and the right hand goes to the 5th thoracic vertebrae. Now, if you want to find the 5th thoracic vertebrae, and instead of having to count, and the person's having a heart attack, and you're like 1, 2, 3, don't die yet. You just make an L, and you put the top of the finger to the top of the shoulder, and you move in, and your fingers will be on T5. And if they're having a heart attack, most likely T5 will be popped out like a circuit. So what you're doing by holding these 2 points is you're creating a relief valve to take the pressure off of the heart. So this is for emergency. So it doesn't necessarily stop the reason for the heart attack, but it stops the heart attack in progress. So once you stop the heart attack, and you're going to hold this for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then you're going to continue holding it until all symptoms are gone. But after that, then you need to go to the appropriate applications to prevent further heart attacks. So a lot of the emergency procedures are that way. They're designed for the emergency at that time. And then usually there's something you have to do later to actually get to the cause. But most heart attacks are related to physical life messenger pathway, which is the pathway that controls the diaphragm. Some people used to call it diaphragm energy. But that energy is supposed to be descending, and when it backs up, it puts pressure on the heart, and that causes the heart attack. It doesn't matter what the other people say about chemistry and this and that's the cause. All that other stuff is secondary. Stop bleeding. There we go. So, there are 2 procedures in where you're using the hand placement almost the same. The only difference is what hand touches the body. So we have a little saying. Right hand on the body to remain, right to remain, and left to leave. So you put the right hand on the body, and then the left hand goes over top at 90-degree angles. This creates a centrifugal, right? If you go to my book, centrifugal spin, that's in. The opposite would be left hand on the body and the right hand over. That is actually for extraction, which we'll probably get to later. But you can do this anywhere in the body. It doesn't have to be at the location. You're not really applying any pressure. It's literally how the hands are on the body and at the angles, so that you're creating an electromagnetic spin. And what that does is it creates all the energy to start spinning inward, and that pulls the blood in, and it pulls the body to start to come back together and seal. The closer to the location, the better. And the more people you can have on a person's body, the faster results you're going to get. So if someone was here and they were shot and they were bleeding very badly, the more people we could get on them and then pray, the quicker that would close up. Well, first you might have to do extraction to get the metal out, but if it goes clean through, then you just do extraction or bleeding. So even if all you can get to is a person's foot, say they're in a bad accident and they're bleeding and the only thing hanging out is the foot, and that's all you can get to, do the same thing on the foot. It's still going to work. Might take a little bit longer, but it still will work. Seizures. So that is both thumbs. And you can see highlighted on there is the entire thumb. So this is not the thumb, this is the thumb. So you want to make sure you get a good, nice hold on the thumb, and then you want to keep your hands loose. So when they're moving, you have a good grip on their fingers, but you're allowing them to move. And it's the same thing. All these procedures, for the most part, are the same. They usually work within, well, sometimes as fast as a minute, to 5 minutes. Somewhere in there is when you're going to see the effect, but you want to hold them until all symptoms are gone. If you have a second person for this, you can hold both big toes. But the thumbs are primarily the reason. Now, energetically, the head and vision messenger pathway I just showed you earlier in third cycle, that is usually the main pathway that causes seizures. It's a little bit different in kids. Kids, sometimes it's the 14s, but for most adults, it's usually the gallbladder energy, which is the head and vision messenger pathway that causes seizures in the body. Choking. That's the high one, and it's basically right in the inside of the thigh where you kind of have this little indent, and you just go to both of them, you apply a little bit of pressure. Usually you don't need pressure, but this one, pressure kind of helps, and what that will do is actually open up the airway, and not only open up the airway, but it will actually pop the food out and eject it. So that's how you control or stop choking. So this is a great procedure, so you don't have to worry about, breaking some ribs or causing injury and doing the other methods out there. And you don't have to buy something to suck it out and all that other stuff that they're trying to sell. You can just use your hands. People might look at you a little weird if you go up to someone and do this. I would suggest just turning around and walking away, and they're going to be like, what just happened? Trust me, when they're choking, they don't even know where you're touching them.
And that's through clothing and everything else?
Yep, you can go right through clothing on these things.
Will these work on animals?
Where they work on what? Animals, maybe, but animals are a little bit different than us, so the points aren't actually quite the same, but you could try it.
Definitely stop bleeding.
Yeah, to stop bleeding, that definitely works. Labor pains. Some of you, it's too late, I'm sorry. But for those who are not, this actually does work great. So you're using an 8 and a 16. So that is the cut and the Zion. And the cut has a lot to do with relaxing the body. And one of the major pathways that travel through these 2 points is water and fertility messenger pathway. So you're working on muscles, liquids, fear, relaxation, all those things that get crazy during birth. So this would be, you would want to be on the left side of the person first, and then if there's a second person, they could go to the right side. And as you can see, I'm on the left side of the person's body, so my right hand's going to the 8 on the left, and my left hand's going to the 16 on the left. And these things get tricky because everyone likes to give birth in different positions. So, and some people don't want you touching them when they're giving birth, so use it at your own risk.
So the right side, would they switch hands then? Or cross paths?
No, you would still go straight.
Okay.
No. But the primary is to do the left. Burns. This is for all burns. I'll have 5 minutes. Oh, great. Okay. Well, good thing all this is in my book now. So you don't have to freak out. The idea is for the palm of the hand to go on the center of the largest part of the calf of the leg, And you're going to be at the feet of the person, laying down, so you're going straight in. So technically your right's on their left and your left is on their right. It gets complicatedly simple if you can keep your lefts and rights correct. And your fingertips are almost going to be at the crease of the back of the leg. So what this does is it will immediately stop the burn in progress. Secondly, it will immediately start cooling the body. Third, it will start reversing the burn. And then fourth, it will actually start tissue repair. And I've been to Sakotes where someone grabbed the coffee pot on a fire and practically almost burnt off the skin. And they applied this you usually have to do this one for about 20 minutes, maybe longer. And by the time he was done, you couldn't even tell he was burnt.
So if you burn yourself, you would do opposite.
Yep. You kind of do this thing, or I show in my book where you can sit Indian style if you can, or in other ways you kind of do this squat thing and you do that squatting.
What about really old scars?
You can help them, but it's not like they're going to go away. So the sooner you can catch it, the better tissue repair you will have. So if it's an old burn that's been years, yeah, you might help it some, but it's not ever going to be like it wasn't there. So the quicker on the scene you are to get this applied, the more recovery you will have. And if the burn's on the calves, then do what you have to. If you have to put like a layer of linen down and then put your hands on that, do that. And people are, well, it's going to burn. It's going to, there's going to be more pain the moment you touch. Yes, but then that's quickly going to disappear. So that's how you stop and reverse burns.
Will it work for fever?
Yeah, it would help fevers. But so would the stop bleeding is great for not only bleeding, but any type of inflammation or heat, sometimes even pain and bloating. So when you have that feeling where you do the stop bleeding, and that will help reduce the inflammation.
Is it as effective if you do it on yourself?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Asthma attacks. So here you're going to be holding, the right finger is going to hold third thoracic vertebrae, and the left finger is going to be holding the middle finger or both middle fingers. So, if you can get the person to put their hands together and then grab them. You don't have to, but you can. That's a little bit more thorough, and that will help an asthma attack. Again, usually 2 to 5 minutes, and keep holding it until all symptoms are gone. But usually you'll see something greatly improved in 2 to 3 minutes. And we used to apply this one all the time in the martial arts because most of the time fear is related to breathing because of the kidney energy pathway, which is related to the issue of fear. Kidneys affect the lungs more than any other pathway in the body. 90% of lung issues are the kidney. And a lot of times when you have very severe issues with the lungs, like we've been having in 2020, it's really fluid building up in the lungs, which is related to fear, and then being misdiagnosed and mistreated so they could kill more people and scare you even more. So this will help a lot of breathing problems, not just asthma. Anaphylactic shock. So you're touching at the center, let's call it collicular notch when you say it plural. But it's the middle of the clavicle bone, which is also the middle of the TOTW, point number 22. And TOTW that point has a lot to do with helping your body to adjust to your environment. So you're touching there with the right hand, and the left hand, you're going to T1. So a lot of these, in my book, I show you how to do them to yourself or how to do it to someone else. Sometimes you can't do it to yourself. We have a little joke in the book on the labor pains. If you could do this to yourself, you don't need it. So, a lot of these you can do to yourself. Very simple. And the first thoracic is the largest bone back here at the base of your neck.
So, question about,
Let me see where we are. Okay.
what about like the anaphylactic shock? So, I was working with a guy and he was trimming shrubs and he cut into a hornet's wasp and 16 whitehead. He got stung 18 times. I thought it was 4. It's Russian to the ER. So if I would have known that, I probably could have.
Yep.
His face was swollen everywhere.
It was-
He needed 4 EpiPens.
Yeah.
He's with it today.
It'd be interesting, because I know it's worked just as well, if not better than EpiPens. I don't know if it would equal 4. But get more people to hold spots. It's right on top of each other.
When you add people, are you just basically adding energy?
Yeah. The more people that touch a person, it amplifies.
So, if it's more.
It multiplies,
If it's
actually.
more people, do they do different areas?
No, you just go right over top. If you can. If it would stop bleeding, they could do it at different spots. But on something like that, you would kind of all want to be like somehow. We're saying. We probably will do. Move on to the thing. Let me just cover some more interesting ones. Fluid on the lungs. So this is a big one right now. You're holding the ring fingers, and you're cradling the fours. What we mean by that is the palm of the hand goes on one side of the body, and the fingertips go on the other side. So that's like a cradle. So you're touching left and right with the right hand, and then the left hand goes to the ring fingers. How can I kick up some? Hysteria, that's a big one today. So you're doing the center of the 13s again, the mem, because that's the top for emotional and hormonal. And then the left hand is going to the 5th thoracic. So anxiety, hysteria, emotional upsets. There you go. Extraction, opposite of stop bleeding, except left goes on the body. So left the leave, and then right is over top. That will pull out scrap metal, it will pull out splinters, sometimes snake bites, poison, sometimes cysts, anything where you need to draw something out of the body. Yeah. Why not?
If you had surgically implanted metal in your body, would it said things not to do then?
Depends on if the body still wants it.
Amen, I go.
Yeah, the body really doesn't work against itself. So it's like, if you get these two mixed up, it's not like you're going to make the person bleed more. Because the body won't actually work against itself. So you don't have to worry about killing someone if you get your hands wrong and the person dies or something. You don't go, oh, I did it wrong. I should have paid attention.
Does it matter if you have a metal ring on?
Metal in the body and on the body will slow down the application. So you just have to do it longer.
So would it be better if you're applying it to
Take all your metal off, yep.
Would it work on like?
In fact, that's really important for heart attacks. If it's not seeming like it's not working and the person has a watch on their left wrist, take that thing off and throw it away. Your watch, every time, if it's a ticking watch, every time it's ticking, you're getting an EMF, and you can measure it on a meter. G, 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 G.
So you're talking about like
Watch is bad.
mechanical ones?
Mechanical are okay because they wind up.
What about a pacemaker?
Same thing, but you kind of need it until you can fix the problem.
Right.
And then maybe find a doctor that will go in and take it out.
Would it help to use essential oils while you're touching those parts?
I'm sure it would.
Will it hurt?
Shoot, no more.
Does the extraction work with like nanotechnology or heavy metals and like the stuff they spray on us with?
Some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Nanotech gets really crazy because of the AI systems and how it's connected. You have to disable its software system, or you really can't get it out of the body.
That's tomorrow's talk.
That's tomorrow's talk.
How does it become extracted? Like with blood, you just stop bleeding, but
Yeah,
like
the body will just start pushing it out through the layers.
through like sweat and.
Until it actually comes to the surface of the skin and pops out.
So do you have to like do you have to like do it wherever you want it extracted?
No, you can do it wherever,
Anywhere in the
but if you're
body.
closer to the location, it's going to be faster. And you're probably going to have to, I mean, this is probably multiple applications if you have something really deep in the body that you're trying to get it to come forward. Okay, I think we're 6 minutes over already, but no one's here to stop me. Maybe we can panel people start setting up chairs or something.
Keep going.
So acute appendicitis. This one is the left hand goes to 11. So that's 11 is right. 11 is on either side of thoracic 1. So that big bone again at the base of your neck. So you want to be touching those. And then same side, so left to right 11. And then the right hand goes to right 25, which is right underneath the butt, right on the sit bone, they call it. So that will help appendicitis. There's a longer sequence for that in the book, but this is like the short application. Next, actually we're almost done. It's food poisoning. So you're going to the 26, which is right in here. And then the opposite hand is going to 21. So this is the shin. So it helps with burning things out of the body. And it also is the beginning of the digestive system. So doing that is great for food poisoning. Strokes, brain attacks. This is a big one today. If you don't know what's going on with a stroke, the best thing is to do the stop bleeding over top of the forehead. Because there's all kinds of different strokes. Now, if you know where the clot is, then in the book there's like 4 different methods, depending on if you know where the clot is. If you don't know where the clot is, I would just do left over right, so right touches the body and left over for stop bleeding. If you know the stroke, or there's a blood clot in the brain, then what you would do, yeah, that's correct. The right hand covers the head, which is actually both 20s, and the left hand is going to the 15s, like in this picture, which is the 15s are like the pubic bone. That will get the energy to send out of the head and get the clot out.
What if it's ischemic? Does it make a difference?
It could, and that I would probably use more. I think that one is more of the stop bleeding. There's another procedure for that in the book.
And if you didn't know which one?
I would do the stop bleeding if you didn't know. That way you don't pull something the wrong way. Because sometimes you have strokes before the brain, and sometimes you have them in the brain, so you don't want to. So the stop bleeding is the safest way to do that if you don't know. Cold immune, so it's the 3 and 15, so that's the gimel and the stomach. And basically what you're doing is, I like doing left hand to the left 15, so you find your pubic bone, and you come over to the crease, right there, it's a 15, and this hand, if you just do this, you're basically on it. Great for the immune system. Flus, viruses, bacteria, fevers.
How long do you leave it there?
As long as you want. The minimum is always 5 minutes. The maximum there is done when you're working on yourself. The more you do, the better. Last slide. Lack of any movement, like I was just saying. So the left touches the right, the right touches left. So if you can't go, just sit there on the pot. Hold your lungs.
There you go. Now you know.
And get some movement going.
Is that on the inside of the knee or the outside?
It's on the inside of the knee.
It's on the inside, because the pictures look like it's on the outside.
Yeah, it's on the inside of the knee, and if your leg's straight, you almost feel like an indent, right where it bends. All right, so we're moving on to the health panel.